Today I'll discuss this new machine I built for myself. This cutting machine isn't its final name since it won't just make cuttings in sand. Pony, it's not quite aquaponics. I'll explain everything in detail. We'll review the design, construction and material costs. Then I'll explain how I plan to use it and what it can do for me. You'll see that even I don't know everything I can do with it yet. Maybe you'll have ideas too. After we've explored its uses, we'll decide what to call this machine. You sent me quite a few ideas, some pretty funny names. We'll look at all of that at the end of the video. Alright, let's get started with the presentation of this crazy machine. Let's begin with something concrete and technical, the design and manufacturing. So first of all, it took me 5 days to make it by myself because sometimes I got a little help to hold big pieces of wood, but overall I made it on my own. I didn't work full days in those 5 days. I think it could be done in 4. One of the longest parts was digging the hole to bury the tank, and then the rest was pretty straightforward. It was completed fairly quickly and cost effectively. I made some notes to give you an idea of my expenses. All in all, the whole thing cost me about 800 euros. Keep in mind that for 800 euros I have a 5 square meter space that I'll be able to use in lots of different ways. We'll see that later, so if you want details, let's say, I estimated the tank at 70 euros, but this is a recycled tank, so I think today it costs. In the 70 euros for the box, there's about 80 euros for the Boston wooden rafters. There aren't any. For that much, there must be about 80 euros for supports to plant it in the ground. Then the plywood that makes up the bottom of the box, that's about 200 euros. Ethylene propylene dye monomer is one of the most expensive options. It's a durable rubber liner, unlike the less sturdy polyvinyl chloride liner. I didn't want to risk it getting punctured there since the liner cost about 225 euros and the sand about 120 euros. We ordered 8 tons, but here we put a little less than 3 tons into the machine. I still don't know what to call it yet. I bought a pump that I haven't installed yet because it's not completely finished. I bought a pump that cost me 115 euros. And so that's basically it. In total, we're at a little over 800 euros. So for the steps, I was saying the longest and most physical part was really digging the hole, especially since the soil here was very, very dry, so I had to moisten it to be able to dig properly. The idea was for the tank to be low enough to be well below the lowest level of the container where the sand is. I can easily access the drain and work under it comfortably if needed, since the container isn't flat. It was made with a slight slope toward the corner where the drain is so that the water can flow. It's a very, very slight slope. It just needs to make sure that little by little the water eventually drains. The container won't stay full. Water will occasionally run over it and must drain back into the reservoir. Then I covered the entire container with a kind of fairly thick fabric. These are reclaimed blankets on top of which we put the PDM. That was just to prevent the PDM from pressing directly on the wood and risking it getting punctured. In one corner, I placed an inspection chamber made of blocks, possibly meant for pillars. The idea was just to access the drain that I installed underneath. The drain is a plumbing thing, like for a bathtub or a sink, pretty standard. After that was set up, I filled the tray. Start with gravel at the bottom, especially the lower section, then add sand on top. The gravel serves a purpose at the bottom. I don't know if it's really useful, but the idea was that it would help the water flow and keep it from stagnating as much. At the bottom, since I don't have a reference with and without gravel, I don't really know if it's useful, but I thought it might help with drainage. And then we filled it with sand. Because the container is tall and tricky to access, I built a small ramp to wheel the heavy sand-filled wheelbarrows up. It was a bit risky as a maneuver. It was pretty funny. I thought it would take me a lot more time, but in the end I didn't even spend an entire afternoon on the sand, so it went pretty quickly. Here I was saying that it's not completely finished. I still have to add some reinforcements on the sides, like the wooden strips I put there. That's just because we'll often have crates and things that we'll be able to put on the bench. And the goal is not to damage the PDM. And since the PDM was sold in fixed dimensions, it was only available in 6 meters or more in width. Since the tray is 4 meters with edges, I have a large leftover on this side. So here I have a good meter, a little more than a meter sticking out here, which I kept because I have a project to make a green wall at the back that will go up behind. It's not for practicality, it's more for aesthetics. That's it. That's something that's coming soon, like I said. I invested in a pond pump that really doesn't use much power because here we're on solar, we don't have much electricity, so it doesn't use much. It doesn't pump very strongly, and I'll make a video in the next few days to show you. But the idea is to have a system that can bring little water jets to the surface here. And then what? And then later a timer that will make it send water, I don't know how yet. 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, depending on the season, depending on how fast the sand dries. Here the goal is just to make sure the whole volume of sand doesn't get soaked, but it stays moist and ready for plants anytime while remaining damp. I don't know. If someone comes with a cutting, a branch of anything, I just have to stick the branch in there and that's it, the cutting is done. That could save me quite a bit of time. So, a few words now about how to use it. Originally, the purpose was just to have a system, like I just told you, to put branches in the sand and make cuttings. That's where its original name, Buteret, comes from. But you'll see I'm thinking of plenty of other ways to use it, which means we'll have to find a more meaningful name for it, because it's not just for making cuttings. A quick word first about what this tool is not. Since I talk about or often hear about aquaponics, sandponics, so just to sum up, aquaponics is on one side tanks with fish with the goal of eating them. Behind the fish it's trout, it's what can you do with it? Many things. I think of tilapia, but it's apparently not allowed to raise tilapia here. So as a result, there are tanks with fish and you have to feed the fish. And then the water is collected to be sent into growing beds, and it's the fish waste that will feed the plants. The plants filter the water, which then returns to the fish tanks. That's aquaponics, usually done in tanks with clay pebbles, but some use sand, calling it sandponics. I already showed you this kind of system at Wally from the Atmospheric Nursery when I did my food forest tour. I'll try to put the link here if I find the video, so here it won't be aquaponics or sandponics in the sense of fish on one side and plants on the other. Personally, I'm not really a fan of that just for that aspect. First of all, the fish are often in dark tanks and with a lot of fish density. Here I think I'm going to put in a few gambusias. It's mainly to eat mosquitoes, not to fertilize the water. That's the fish's role. I don't know if I'm a fan, maybe I'll try it one day anyway. Where I'm less of a fan is using this water fertilized with fish waste to feed plants that will grow all the way to harvest, to eat them. For me, a plant, maybe I have a pretty narrow view, but for me a plant is meant to grow in soil, and it's the life in the soil and everything that's in the soil that allows the plant to find everything it needs to feed itself. And in a container with just water and fish waste, it works. Many people do it, but I'm unsure about the nutrition or taste. Well, anyway, maybe I have a bit of a closed-minded view when it comes to aquaponics, and honestly I don't really have much experience with it, so my opinion doesn't have much value. But in any case, for me, the goal is not to use it that way. Here, the goal is to start cuttings to get a root system going, and once the root system is established and the plant has started, we'll take those plants and either put them in the ground to grow them until harvest or put them in pots for sale. I'm a nurseryman, so my goal is to produce plants for sale, not to grow them long term. Also, the space isn't large enough for food production. Here, the goal is just to produce cuttings, and once they've rooted, they go somewhere else. It's kind of like the glass of water you use to root a cutting. Except here, it's water that's not in full light, it's dark in the sand, and the water is completely oxygenated. And there you go. The system can be effective for all the things I could use it for now. I just talked to you about woody cuttings, so here you just have to put them in the sand. And then little by little, they'll grow roots, and in 1, 2, or 3 months, when they've grown roots and leaves, I can take them out. That's one way to do it. For example, I just divided some comfrey plants here. The part with the buds is already set aside for growing or selling, and I have plenty of root cuttings left. I'm putting them in a small sand patch, and once they start growing, they'll move to another type of cultivation. I could do that for all possible root cuttings. I don't think there's any limit in that regard. Then there are the tubers that we usually keep in storage. They're stored in sand-filled buckets over winter, kept frost-free since the sand buffers against frost. Instead of using buckets, we can organize them in sections in the cutting box. This method has advantages over using buckets. You still have to check on them regularly in the spring to see if they're not starting to bud in the bucket. Once they start budding in the bucket, it spreads everywhere and gets tangled, which isn't always easy. I've experienced that too. Once they're in their section, we can spread them out properly. And then as soon as it starts in the spring, we'll see what stage it's at, and above all, it's going to save me all the work when it gets going. We pot, water, repot them into larger pots, and once they're developed, we sell or plant them. Here we can let them grow well until they look nice in the sand. And then as soon as they get big enough, we can put them straight into large pots and they're immediately ready for sale. In the meantime, there won't be any need to monitor the watering because the sand will stay moist automatically. So that's a big time saver, and you see it's much more convenient. Anyway, here I showed you the cuttings of woody plants, but I could also do glass cuttings later, glass cuttings. The problem that could come up is that it needs more humidity, and here it's outdoors. But we're still thinking about how we're going to organize things. But I think that with containers like this placed on certain areas, just by putting a container on top like this, I'll keep an area that will stay humid. Well, I'm thinking I'll try it like this maybe. I'll build a structure around it to have a slightly bigger greenhouse. Again, it's something to try out, so cuttings, tubers, and also, why not, seeds. I'm not necessarily going to put potting soil in it, but I'm not against the idea of maybe digging a small area and putting a bit of potting soil on the surface, just to see if a few seeds will germinate. Otherwise, I'll try directly in the sand. For all the big seeds, such as the azimiers, we'll handle the oaks at Glandu. There are plenty of trees with fairly large seeds, so maybe after stratification outdoors we can try planting them here. For smaller seeds, add some potting soil, let them germinate, and after sprouting, observe what happens. I'm thinking I'll see how it goes with use over time. Right now the sand is brand new, it's all clean, so for now I'll just see how it develops. It's also easy to replace some sand with fresh, clean sand. I've been growing in ground level sand-filled beds for a long time. Generally, I think it shouldn't be too different. Another possible use could be as an intensive care area. Let's imagine I have a plant that's a bit sickly, a bit unwell, I don't know. All you have to do is take the plant out of its pot, out of the ground where it is, use a hose to wash the roots thoroughly, and then put it in there. And just to see if it manages to start again with some clear water and get a fresh start, and then boost the rooting a bit. I didn't say it, but I might cheat a bit by adding some things. Sometimes I'll try and water like rooting hormones. I'm not going to buy it. I make rooting hormone with soil water and it stimulates rooting. It will stimulate the rooting of all the plants that are there. After that, there are many little tricks. If anyone knows about this, let me know in the comments. I think a plant can grow new roots from its stem. Some hormones like auxin are made by plants and may be released from the roots. These hormones will enter the water and are the same ones that promote rooting when we make soil water. And I think that with all these plants that are going to produce roots here, there will naturally already be these hormones that will end up in the water and will stimulate. All the other plants that I'm going to put in there, plants that will be in intensive care, I think it could be a way to give them a little boost. Once the plants have started growing again, we take them out, put them back in the ground or back in a pot. Well, that's one more little use. Let me know in the comments if you have other ideas for using it or even ways to improve the tool. Like I was saying, I'm going to make a green wall on the back part, but maybe there's a way to modify this tool even more so it can have lots of other uses. Oh, and now I'm going to tell you what I decided to call this machine. You gave me a whole list of names. I wrote them down somewhere here. I originally wanted to call it Bouturette, but since I'm not only doing cuttings, I need a more fitting name. You suggested the nursery, the prime table, the seedling table, and the push-push table. The sandbox, it's a sandbox indeed, the maternity, the incubator, the matrix, the jaugeonier, the plantificator, the plumponniere, the board of wonders, the hydroponic carousel, the nurse, the nanny, the name nanny. I almost kept that, maybe I'll remember it. The multiplier, the plant nursery, the catapult. If the goal is to launch plants, someone suggested the catapult. There are many funny names. Thanks for your great sense of humor in the comments. Someone once made me question why I was overthinking it. If my first choice was Bouturette, why not keep it even if it's used elsewhere? It's going to stay Bouturette, and when I talk about it with Carol, I still call it Bouturette. But I came up with another name idea. I wanted a name that would clearly reflect how it's going to be used. If I say the catapult to people, it doesn't really tell them what it is. The idea is to start cuttings, just to start rooting, start tubers, start seeds. So I present to you the starter. I think this name will spare me from explaining that the goal isn't to grow things to harvest. The goal is simply to begin. Once started, it moves forward on its own. Here you go. Let me know what you think of this name, though I think it will stay as is. Alright, that's it for the presentation, the first presentation. I think as a result, there will be a lot of videos coming soon about all the different ways I'll be using it. Yeah, I think there will be plenty. Videos also cover progress, the green wall in back, the irrigation system I'll install, the timer and more. So there are more videos coming up right after this about the next steps, about the seedlings, about the new seedling greenhouse we just set up. There are a lot of new improvements in place, especially the seedling greenhouse. I'll update you soon, then we'll discuss the first seedlings to plant this year. Anything else for those interested in visiting? Reminder, we open April 4th, the first weekend of April, and we'll be open every Saturday after that. Otherwise, we're open by appointment. For those who want to buy tuber seeds, we also sell them online. I'll put a link to the online store for you. And that's it. Thank you for watching until now. Share the video with people around you if you think it might interest others, and subscribe. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. All that, it always feels good. If you'd like to support me financially, you can use Typee. I'll share the link. Thanks so much to everyone who supports me or plans to. Thank you very much to all these people without whom I wouldn't be able to take the time to make all these videos. All right, see you very soon. Bye.